All right. So this is the second call of the master's curriculum for digital economics. And today, or in this one, we're going over the sales aspect of this. And so I know that a lot of people, um, the most people that joined this group, they are wanting to build a large audience, create a digital product, and have that kind of ecosystem going. When I first started out, and like this is what I did at the start, was sales in all aspects is just good to know, because whether it be when you're writing a landing page, or you're writing copy for your product, or you're just DMing someone, whether it be to sell them on something or not, the sales process isn't really a sales process. It's more so like how you communicate your value to people in order to receive value from them. So some kind of an exchange, influence in a sense, which we talked about in Digital Economics 101, like the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. There's so much crossover in sales in itself. I like to I like to think of it from the broad perspective of it applies to everything. Everything is sales, but at the same time, what we're the perspective we're talking about in this specific module is for selling a service that selling a service, because selling a product in, let's say, the DMs, or when you're communicating with someone via email or something like that, that's better done on a landing page and when you're sending traffic to it. Because if you try to sell someone on a product in the DMs, it works. And it's actually what a lot of people did when I first started out on Twitter. That's how they made a living, is they would just DM people all day trying to sell like a $97 to $197 digital product. But at the same time, it doesn't really make sense, because then it's like you're trading a ton of time for a minimal amount of money. But if you have a minimum viable offer or some kind of service that you're slowly iterating on, and can eventually charge 1,500 to 5,000, and I know some coaches, consultants, they charge 10, 20, $30,000 for a service itself. And so the way that I like to think of it is that it is very good to start with just some kind of consulting service, right? Whether it be a pack of 4 calls, or like even a like single skill freelance service. So if you do web design, or you do copywriting, or you do any of those marketable skills that people tell you to learn, you can freelance with those and sell that as a single skill for a low price. That's like what people are doing on Fiverr and Upwork, but you can make more by DMing and selling to your own audience, because you're not relying on a platform that pretty much commoditizes you the minute that you join, because you're in competition with everyone on that platform, versus like displaying your value online and being able to charge a higher rate because of that. And the next thing I want to touch on, and I believe we've touched on this before, but I just want to make it clear that for a freelance service, or for a freelance service, that can also be sold as a consulting service, right? That was a big like mental switch for me, because a lot of people, from what I've heard, they are opposed, or not opposed, but like they think that freelancing is the only option for them, the only logical option for them to start. When in my eyes, consulting is that logical option if you plan on creating a digital product, right? Because that's how you can get results the fastest, especially when we're in an ecosystem of creators, and we all have similar values of self-reliance and doing things ourselves. And it just makes sense to do a consulting service, help people that way, get results faster, and be able to communicate directly one-on-one with someone, help them implement something, and get a testimonial from them. And now with other interests like that would, like health, or even like finances or other things, that is already a given. Like you're going to do consulting over freelancing just because that's what makes sense. So now, in order to sell these services, we have to understand the general sales process and in a better way of doing that. And so that's what we went over in this module. So just to give a brief refresher and leave comments in the chat, or since we have a really small group, we can just open it up for questions and let the discussion spark from there. But I'll give a brief rundown just to like refresh what's in our mind to see if any questions come to mind. So the first thing when we went over was the sales process as a whole. So the entire flow with that being you reach out to someone not to sell them, but to qualify them and see if you can actually help them, right? So at the very start, there should be like no hint or even a smell that you're trying to, or the other person that you're DMing or even just talking to shouldn't even get a whiff that you're trying to sell them on something. It's more so you're trying to connect, you're trying to understand them more, where they're at, what their goals are. And then depending on that, you start to kind of offer your value, whether it be for free or paid. And now as you get deeper into this game and you have more authority and people see like, oh, he has 20, 30, 40,000 followers, he knows what he's doing, then it's more so like you can skip steps because the authority and social proof is already there. And you can just be like, hey man, yeah, I have a program on this, it's proven to work, I'd be happy to help you. And then they're usually much more open to, I guess, quote unquote, being sold at that time. And then after that, we kind of went over how to implement that in the DMs. So DMs across the board are extremely important in this game. Like we've talked about this many times, whether it be just to network and grow or to sell someone on your service and make an income doing it. And there is a lot of crossover with that when you are doing this whole experience model or you're selling based on your interests, right? Because you start talking about those interests, you uncover the problems that someone is having, and you can either grow with them, and this is dependent on who you actually plan to help, whether it's a consumer or a creator. Both are good, but both, again, cross over there. So when you are reaching out to creators, it would be wise to try to help them however you can. And a lot of the times they'll offer to pay you, or there will be that talk about payment and you can take payment. But either way, if you help someone that is a creator, that is like one of the highest leverage things you can do, because as they grow, the testimonial or the results that you got them also grows. It grows in value. Like me and Joey, we kind of exchange services at the start where he helped me with performance, I helped him with his offer, and like pretty much all of the stuff we're talking about in the master's curriculum. And so I've had a testimonial from Joey since like we were at 4,000 or 5,000 followers. And now that we're here and people see a testimonial from Joey and the follower count that he's at, it's like, oh, wow, yeah, that's a real dude that he helped out that I know. And that helps boost the perceived authority of my own service, right? So that's just a tip and something I would recommend like keeping in mind as you're going about this, and always offer as much value as you can to other creators that you connect with, because as people say, network is your net worth. And if you know a creator and are connected to a creator and have networked with a creator, you in essence are just opening yourself up to a lot more opportunity than you would if you were reaching out to a consumer, because a creator is so much more immersed in the in their audience. They have an audience, right? So they have a lot more people that can be referred to your service if you give them that initial value or just are very selfless with how you help that other creator. It just pays itself back tenfold in growth and in money in the future. So we did DMs, we talked about that entire flow, and then we talked about qualification. So in the main thing with this is that with products, you're mainly going like for a landing page and then a sale. But for a service, your job is to break that down, because you're selling something that is usually going to cost people a good amount of money. And that's just not going to happen on a landing page, especially at the start. You have more leeway and you can get more creative with this in the future when you have like a huge audience and a ton of traffic. That's the thing. You would need a ton of traffic to convert more people on, let's say, a $1,500 offer than you would like a $97 offer. But then if you are DMing those people and you're qualifying them and you're building that trust like in the moment there and getting on a call and walking through their problems and pretty much taking them through a sales page over the course of 1, 2, 3 days, however long it takes to get them on a call and eventually close them. But that's how you sell a freelance or consulting service as opposed to something else. And the way that I've found this best works is having a questionnaire as the initial show of interest, because it's low friction, right? So you have a questionnaire that asks very strategic questions and kind of helps raise their level. It makes them raise their level of awareness of their problem and whether or not they want to work with you. But at the same time, when you have a questionnaire, you can include that as a plug under your tweets. You can include it in your newsletters and just be like, hey, fill out this questionnaire and I'll shoot you a DM to see how I can help you. And that alone gets many more leads, so to say, instead of like sending a Calendly link, sending them to a landing page that's trying to sell them on your service or even sell them on a call. It's more so you're just having them fill out a questionnaire and then you take it from there in the DMs to like move them through that sales process. And yeah, so those are the main things and most important things aside from the sales call itself. But for those, do any questions come to mind? Because one other thing is that I know that this is a lot and this is not meant to be done. Like I don't expect you to go and make $50,000 in a week with this. Like it's not going to happen, right? It takes time to DM people. It takes time to get on calls. 1 week isn't a good gauge on how well that's going to happen, especially if you haven't done this before. It's going to take a bit of practice and experience to like just get in that flow and spot the opportunity where it's like, okay, yeah, we should get on a sales call. Oh yeah, I should send him the questionnaire as opposed to a Calendly link and all this other stuff. So with all of that, do you guys have any questions on that or on what we've talked about in the curriculum as a whole so far?
Just from what you just said right now. So the way it would work is after DMing back and forth for a while, you would send them for example, the Google form link for them to fill out, and then they do it. And if you see that they qualify after that, then you DM them again and send them the Calendly link.
Yes. So when you're DMing someone, there's a lot more like interaction than rather someone just finding the questionnaire link in a newsletter or in like on your website or just some kind of link in your bio. But I do recommend sending that first just to qualify them and see if you can help them. But then after that, the DM process doesn't have to be very long. You can just be like, okay, yeah, it all looks good. Maybe you can just ask a question. Like I saw you mention that you're struggling with this. Can you expand on that a bit more? And then when they do, you can be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Let's hop on a call, talk about it more and see if I can help you further. But if they do find your link, let's say in a newsletter, then you're going to have to DM them a bit more and ask them a bit more questions. I mean, all of this is variable. You don't have to. But I would recommend DMing them a bit more, asking them and like kind of probing based on the answers they gave to your questionnaire, and then give them a call. So it's either a good amount of DMs before you send the questionnaire, and then a little bit of DMs before you send the call link or the Calendly link. Or if they find the questionnaire first, then it's like you're kind of moving the amount of DMs you send over to build that trust, and then the Calendly link when you decide that they would be a good fit to work with you. And one of the big reasons behind this is that like you, if you follow the people that talk about sales and other things, like one of the biggest problems is that people are just tire kickers on calls, and it's a big waste of time. So the amount that you can minimize that by qualifying them up front will help so much with that, and it will lead to much more productive calls and much more calls that actually lead to sales. So your close rate technically increases, and you're spending a lot less time trying to sell people on things, or a lot less time on calls. I had one more thing, but does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It does. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about just qualifying them. The amount of DMs that you use to qualify them, it just depends on whether, yeah, you send them the questionnaire before you actually talk to them, as you said, if they found it in your link, or if you've been talking to them before and then you send them the questionnaire.
Yes, 100%. And I didn't include this because I know it's a question. I may have talked about it a bit, like very tiny bit. But a question that a lot of people have is like, can I close in the DMs without getting on a call? The answer is yes. The answer is a 100% yes, but it's harder and you need a lot more authority. Now, again, this is all variable. You could get lucky the first time around and the guy could be like, oh yeah, I want to buy from you, just send the link, let's do it. But that's very few and far between unless you have like a database. So the way I'll put this best is the podcast for me and the newsletters, the long form content, that's why I stress this so much, is that it builds so much authority, so much more authority than, let's say, just a tweet, right? So if people listen to your podcast or they read your newsletters and it's really paradigm shifting for them, or it's just long and in depth and they like the effort that you put into that long form content compared to like just the quick catchy content like reels or TikToks. Most of the times when I would get on a call with someone, they'd be like, oh yeah, I love that podcast episode you did, or that one specific newsletter, it really stuck out to me. And they're much more likely to close because they were already sold, right? They already wanted to work with me. They didn't really care what I was selling at that point. They just knew it would help them because I talk about those problems and other things that I help people with quite a bit, right? And it might have been the same with this cohort. It's like if you guys read like a super in-depth and valuable thread that I posted, I know Sahil said he joined for that reason alone. Maybe some of you like listen to the podcast or even like the newsletter, and that just builds a lot more trust, right? Compared to like if I were to just post a tweet where it's like a one-liner of, oh, you need to start an online business, and then plug the link to the actual page, and it's like, okay, yeah, I may join, I may check it out, I may look at the actual landing page, and the landing page may work, and I may get a few sales from that, but the long form content is superior in that aspect. And as you grow and as your authority builds, and the more attention you hold from people, the more value you deliver for free, the more likely they will be to actually close in the DMs and be open to just paying you without getting on a sales call, without further building that trust, because the trust is already built from the long form content. So in essence, that's just me reiterating the importance of over time building the habit of writing the newsletter. And it gets more important as you grow an audience, as you kind of systemize that growth and are continuously growing, and you have that time to put a lot more effort into the newsletter, maybe into a podcast, maybe into some other kind of long form content like YouTube, that will help you sell much, much, much easier and give you more time on your hands to productize things and all of that stuff. So that was a bit long-winded and kind of a tangent, but I think it's important. So with that, are there any other questions regarding this module or really anything we're doing in digital economics? And Joey, if you ever feel like I'm missing something, feel free to chime in.
No, I don't think you've missed anything. I have a mini rant that might be appropriate at some point.
Cool. But yes, Samantha.
So I'm revamping my Polymath website, and right now the at the top banner we have like a newsletter sign up is the very main one. So what we're getting is actually a lot of people coming to the website and right away signing up for the newsletter. I think even before they keep going, which is good. But in the new revamp, we really want people to join. So lots of people are signing up for the newsletter, which I haven't got out yet, but not as many people are applying. So in the new revamp, I'm wondering if I should make the join a bigger deal in the banner and then just have a small bar that says with the newsletter, or leave it the way it is and have the newsletter as the main CTA as soon as they come on, as opposed to joining. What do you think?
Yeah. So the way that I see it, it could go either way, right? Where you could go straight for the conversion on the landing page, or what I think would be a bit better is in that CTA or in the opt-in, you could say get the newsletter, but also get updates on the community, something that implies that they're going to get emails on the community, and then you can enter them in a like 2 to 5 email sequence that would sell them on the community and bring them back to the landing page, right? So they don't have to wait for like either a newsletter on it or to get to the landing page again. It's more so you're hitting other angles that will get them to click and read through the landing page and go past that newsletter opt-in, right?
Okay, so how it's going to be is like the home, it's more like a directory. It's a whole different way of doing the website. So the homepage is more of a like, these are our blog posts, these are the articles from our members, and then you can actually click and search who the members are and what their different specialties are, and hopefully people can hire them. So it's going to be more lucrative to be a member. But of course, I need to build the membership up. So that's why I'm trying to figure out. So when the average person comes, they come to the home page, but then there's a community page which says join. And when we're running Twitter Spaces, I literally will just send them to the join page. So that will be their like a click funnel page. So then you would still advise that, like on the click funnel page, if you will, like join the community, you would still put the newsletter first. That's what you're saying? And then,
So in that case, I wouldn't put the newsletter if they're already kind of primed.
okay,
But if you
yeah,
do
because there's
want
more
to,
time.
yeah, if you do want to still capture some people that may leave, it can be a similar thing where you either offer like maybe a like some kind of lead magnet where it's like uh, something related to the community that's just like a free PDF or something, and then enter them in the email sequence to bring them back to that join page if they weren't ready to buy then. That's what a lot of people do as pop-ups, where it's like, no, don't leave, download this, and then they upsell them in the future, or not upsell, but sell them on it in the future. Uh, but as a whole, a more focused landing page to get them straight to the call to action and make them understand everything that they will receive is probably the best way to go about it. And then possibly under that, you could have like not ready to join, download, like get a sneak peek with this lead magnet, and then enter them into some kind of sales sequence.
That's a good idea. So we ran a master class on like energy hacks from, and different members shared them in a Zoom call. So I could just say, want a sneak peek of one of our masterminds. Because that particular one, I don't think they'll care if that one's public. So then they could download that sample of energy hacks that we shared.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I did with Modern Mastery for a bit. Is I took like one of the first trainings and I just made it a lead magnet, and that's actually what I promoted on the timeline to enter people into an email sequence to get them to join Modern Mastery.
Okay, so I can get you to look at it once it gets a little further. It's in process. If that's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And just one quick little thing. This morning in my LinkedIn, I got an email from Brains Magazine asking to talk to me to see if they'd like if I would make the selection panel for the magazine. So I think it's like a pre-select, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Brains Magazine, like they've had Jim Quick in there and some other people on there. So yeah, she like messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm on the selection committee and we'd like to talk to you." I was like, "What? Can you make time
That's
to talk?"
sweet.
I'm like, I don't know. It's, there's probably tons and tons and tons of people that they put on a pat, for selection. So it's very, very, very unlikely that I would get chosen for the magazine. But anyway, the fact that they want to talk to me is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Oh yeah,
Thanks.
no problem. All
I had to
right.
share that. I had no one else to share it with this morning.
Yeah. No, I'm stoked. That's awesome. All right. Okay. From Oscar. Regarding the sales method, the automated method and the gym salesman method, one are similar in that they fill out the form and you call them, just not right away. How are they different? So the automated method and the gym salesman. I'd have to take a look. There was one that I recommended above all. I was kind of putting those there as like, here are the different options, but here's the best one. So the one where it's like the gym salesman method is the one where you call them like within 10 minutes, because that's what salespeople at the gym do, is they get a lead and then they're like, this lead is hot, I need to call them immediately. Same goes with like car sales, I believe, and it's what a lot of agencies do. With lead generation is when let's say I'm running Facebook ads for a car salesman, right? And then someone fills out that Facebook ad, and then that like the lead's information gets sent to the car salesman. They have 10 minutes to call, and because it's fresh in the prospect's mind that they expressed interest in an ad that just popped up in front of them, right? So the gym salesman works better when it's like you're trying to close someone fast. But when you have them as a lead in your email list or even in your audience, I would recommend the automated method where they fill out your questionnaire, and then in the most recent module that just dropped, you put them into an appointment sequence along with like you DMing them to walk them through the process. So in the appointment sequence that dropped today, it's kind of like you're breaking down your service over a series of 4 to 5 emails, not super long emails, but you're telling them about your service, why it applies to them, hitting the pain points, hitting the problems, and then you have follow-ups in place to actually schedule a call with them. That's where you have the call link. So you can think of it as where if you didn't have the email sequence in place, then they fill out the questionnaire, you DM them, and you kind of walk them through what the emails would be. And then once you decide whether they're a fit or not, then you give them the Calendly link. But you can also do that with an email sequence and kind of have like double power there and just have it running automatically if you don't have time to DM people, where they fill out the questionnaire, then they start getting emails on XYZ pertaining to your service, and then they're asked to schedule a call once they've kind of self-qualified in that automated method in a sense. But I would also recommend doing DMs there, because then it's kind of weird if you say like, hey, fill out this questionnaire and then I'll DM you. So they fill out the questionnaire, you DM them, but then if they ever go quiet in the DMs, they're still getting email follow-ups to schedule a call with you. So you're not just so your DMs aren't going to waste in that case, where if you spend time DMing them, then and they like go quiet and they stop responding to you, then it's like you're still hitting them in the emails, and you could possibly hit the pain point that makes them get on a call with you and possibly be closed, right?
Okay, so the difference is that with the gym salesman, you do it with your own time as opposed to with the automated, that even if you don't call them right away or you don't close them right away, you still put them into like an automated sequence where they're getting reminded of you and your service, product, whatever.
Yes.
That's what you mean? Okay.
Yeah. So gym salesmen, I see it happen like on Twitter too. I'm not a huge fan of it just because it's like it's really pushy, and it like you have to have a lot of free time. Where if you get a notification on your phone, let's say you have Google hooked up to Zapier, and when someone fills out the questionnaire, you get like a text on your phone, which is like, you need to call this number and follow up with them. Here's the answers they gave on the questionnaire. And then you call them immediately. You're like, hey, it's Oscar. I saw you filled out the questionnaire. Just want to follow up, see if you have any questions about the service. And like that's great and all, but some people may not answer. You're building an audience, so it make more sense to DM them from a place of authority. And even after that, it's like you still have to keep calling them. Like that's what the gym people do, is they'll just follow up with you till the end of the earth with calls because they have the time to do so and they're getting that commission. Where like they'll call you every day until you block their number.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Mhm. All right, Joey, let's hear your rant.
So I've seen a couple people ask in the Discord, not just in the cohort section, but other places, as well as people on Twitter. I've noticed people asking the question, who am I to be selling something? Who am I to be helping people? So I want to try to provide at least a bit of a perspective shift on this. So we all have problems. Now, problems aren't necessarily the typical, like, oh man, I'm overweight or I'm tired or something like that. A problem you can also think of as a need, right? So if you think about, say, a Rolex or a Lamborghini, that solves a problem, kind of, but it also solves a need. And that need in that case is social status. People want more social status, so they buy a fancy car or they buy a fancy watch, and their problem is solved for a while at least. So, where you want to start is kind of what's been going on in the curriculum, where you start by thinking about who you want to help and what problems those people have, what needs those people have. Probably is about the same thing, depending on the context. What desires do they have? They are at point A, and they don't want to be at point A anymore because of reasons, the negative aspects of being at point A. They want to get to point B, whatever that may be. Maybe they want to get in better shape. Maybe they want to be more efficient. Maybe they want to have more leads, more customers, a better website, so on and so forth. There's so many different options for that. Well, you either have or are building or can build the skills to solve those problems. Plus, you have unique experiences and perspectives and so on that no one else can replicate. So, if you have, especially if you have solved a problem for yourself, which is what a lot of us have done, that's where I started with performance consulting. I had studied this stuff to help myself get through college and lose weight and all that good stuff, and realized I could take it and use it to help other people. If you are interested in something that can solve a problem and you can build those skills and you're willing to ask questions and try out stuff, which a lot of you have been great about doing, including the people who are going to watch the recording, of course, then you are worthy of being somebody who can sell and solve a problem. In fact, I've always argued, I don't remember where I originally heard this, but I've always argued that if you have a solution to a common problem, you have a responsibility to put it out there and help people with it. Because otherwise, you're basically depriving people and letting them continue having that problem. So you may not feel like you're there yet. You may not feel like you're at the level you want to be at, but it takes time. If you're able to just like study for a weekend and become and achieve mastery in something and become like the Steven Cutler, for example, he's the main performance guy that I like. If I could be like him next week, it wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be, I mean, everybody would be doing it, and it wouldn't be something worth a lot of money. Common things aren't valuable, basically. I had another thought, and I think, oh, one of my performance consulting clients right now, he's scaling his agency and things are going well. But every now and then he gets really down because he says, I'm not doing enough. And we look back and we see I've started having him keep a done list. That's a good hack when you feel like you're just not doing enough work, is to write down the stuff that you actually have done. So you have a to-do list and a done list. But anyway, I told him on our last call, you're never going to feel like you did enough because there's always more to do, especially because he's on 5 or 6 different platforms. He has 2 or 3 different offers, different ways of prospecting, all this stuff. There's always more work to do. So you have to focus on what your one-off and recurring priorities are for each week and make sure that you're managing your tasks and your time so that you feel satisfied with what you've gotten done in a day or in a week, because otherwise you're going to be disappointed in yourself and then you're going to lose motivation. And that creates a downward spiral where you basically just give up because you're like, well, I feel like I'm losing the game, so I'm just going to quit. You have to track the stuff that you're doing so that you can look back and see when you start feeling down, like, oh, I put in all this work and I've gotten these wins, and then you can keep building upon them. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Nice. Yeah, I'll add on to that too. Is that this is kind of sort of similar, is that when you are DMing people or when you are trying to find clients, it's hard to do, but I would not assume that they don't need your service, right? Because it's very easy to see someone who's killing it in the agency world, like in Joey's case, where they're on 6 platforms. They're so productive from their perceived brand that they don't have any problems. Like, they wouldn't need my help. They have it all figured out. And if they did need help with something, like whatever I help them with, then they're so productive they can learn and do about it on their own. That's not the case at all. Like, people are willing to talk about their problems, and they want to talk about their problems, and they want to find solutions to them. And if you can provide that solution, I'm pretty much going back to what Joey was saying originally, is that you can pretty much help anyone. You really can, because people can become interested in something, especially if it's something, since we're all hopefully aiming to build a somewhat large audience, that will require like a more broad content that more people can become interested in. And then that alone means that they can eventually become interested in whatever service you offer. Like, if it's more niche, where it's like, oh, start an agency, or if you have an agency, you do XYZ, then, or like if you're targeting agency owners, then you kind of need to create agency owners, and you need to talk about the basics of online business, and you need to work them into starting an agency to the point of having your like actual done for you service of helping agency owners do XYZ. And so in essence, you can help anyone. You just have to understand what part of the journey they are at relating to your interest, and then help them in that aspect. And so this is one other thing that I'll talk about regarding, what was it? Okay. So one good thing about like sales or offer creation is that when you don't have a solidified like offer, like if you don't have a service where it's like, yes, I help you with this, 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 and this, when you aren't extremely clear on the best offer that sells for you, you have a lot of leverage where you can DM really anyone. And if you understand the sales process and offer creation enough, you can kind of create an offer on the spot, because you're kind of dissecting when you're DMing them or you're on a sales call, you're kind of getting firepower from them. So like problems, pain points, and other things to kind of craft an offer or a landing page when you explain that offer and what you can help them with. So let's say like you sell a very high level performance service. So in Joey's case, performance service for like executives and entrepreneurs, but you have an audience where you talk about like regular performance stuff that applies to a lot of people to build an audience. So you're talking about sleep, you're talking about health, you're talking about focus and these other things. And you're DMing someone who, let's say, has like he's not an executive entrepreneur, maybe he's entry-level guy just getting started in a 9-to-5 world, and may not have like too much money, but is having problems that you can help him with, and wants to get to that executive position to be able to work with you in your full service. Then you can still get on a call with them, and you can close them on some kind of like micro coaching, or even a pack of like 4 calls or even 2 calls, or whatever you deem necessary for them that you need to help them with. And then if you can't help them with anything, well, in the future, that's what the digital product is for. And that would be targeted towards them to then educate them to the point of working with you on the higher level service. So in essence, like you can create, that's kind of what the minimum viable offer is it's like a more broad and low level, in a sense, service that would eventually be a digital product. But then as you iterate your service and that becomes more high level and more, how would I put it, more expensive, I guess you could say, and then you have the digital product in place, then everything starts to flow a lot smoother. And as your audience grows, then you can send more traffic through that, and then it compounds over time. But as with everything we've been learning, there is a way to do it and a way to make a fairly good income without any of that stuff. People do it all the time. The audience is just like a force multiplier for all of that. So Oscar, you asked, what are the action steps for this module? I didn't include it because with sales and everything we're doing, it's like, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. I want to add something where it's more so focused on you determining your priorities right now. But if I were to give action steps for closing clients right now, I would say set a number of DMs that you can handle. And this can cross over with, this doesn't have to be specifically for sales. This can be with, what's it called? This can be with, like, if you're trying to grow as well and network with people, just set like a minimum number of DMs that you can hit every day, whether it be like, let's say like 5 DMs. And the way you would go about that is you're like scrolling the timeline, you're looking at people's profiles, you're looking at their following list, you're looking at people in the replies, and you're like, oh yeah, I could help this person, or I want to just connect with this person. Then you DM them some kind of introductory message, right? Where it's like, oh, I read this reply. I read this reply. I actually faced this one time. I was wondering like how that's going for you, right? And then you can start to transition into some kind of like sales DM script, or even just like a networking script. Or if it's a creator, then it's like, a more networking type script where you're trying to, like the non-needy networking that we talked about previously. So that's the main thing, is like it can get extremely overwhelming if you don't, if one, it's not a priority, or two, if you set like the bar too high where it's like, yeah, I need to send 100 cold emails or 100 DMs a day. I would say send 5. And then if you feel like doing more, or you feel that momentum building and you get that first win, then it's like, okay, yeah, I can, like, I know that I can replicate this and keep doing it more than I already am. Then that's what I would recommend. So I see your other questions. Do you have anything for that?
No, that's great, actually. That gives me a little bit more clarity. So that's great. I mean, I think the other ones kind of have to do a little bit with it, but they were more specific. So I wanted to get the general ones out first for everyone's benefit.
Awesome. All right, I'll read those. So before my first call, you mentioned I need to have an invoice ready. Does it have to have their full real name, and also have ready what the next steps are normally onboarding? No. So with the invoice, it's more so like have the page open, have like be ready to type the price you say in, and then like while you're there, you can be like, oh, okay, so what's the best email? And then you type in their name, and then it's like, all right, cool, I just sent over the invoice, let's do it. It's more so like just so you're not wasting quiet time on the phone or on a call, where you're like, okay, let me open Stripe, let me get all this stuff, and then you may hit a roadblock and you're like, oh crap, where'd the invoices thing go? So it's mainly just like prep yourself for when it's time, but you can still like fill it in while you're on the call and like ask questions or even joke around or something like that. And then in terms of onboarding, once they pay, then you can be like, okay, let's schedule a kickoff call. And then you can be like, what's the best time that works for you? Or you can just say what the next steps are, where it's like, okay, cool, I'll send you an email with all the next steps, or even like it can be a DM in some cases. But it is just important to have those next steps very clear and like what's going to happen next. And in a lot of cases, let's say like in the freelance world, let's say in web design, in my case, I would have to get them into a project management dashboard, so Trello, and I would have to give them information for that. I'd have to get their email and everything, get them access to Trello and make sure they can see everything and all of that stuff. But for something that's like consulting, it can be a lot more simple, where you're just like, yeah, let's schedule a kickoff call and then we'll go over, and that's what kickoff calls are for as well, where it's like, we'll get you access to like a Notion dashboard if you want, or like, you just have to be very clear what the next steps are, and it doesn't have to be too complex. You just have to like leave them with something to look forward to, in a sense. And so is that one good? Any questions stem from that?
No, that's great for them. Thanks.
Cool. All right. So if I believe that the minimum efficient time to get results from my offer is 3 months, should I go straight for the 3-month package calls? Yeah. Start with that. And then you can always change in the future, right? So if you believe that that is the minimum amount of time you need, then go for the 3 months, charge according to the 3 months. I'd say like $1,000, 1,000, 1,500 if it's your very first client, or if you're doing it for free, then do it for free, of course. But I'd say 1,000, 1,500 is a very reasonable price for a 3-month package. And then go from there, see it through, make sure you're delivering as best you can and like walking them through it. And then the next time around, if you're like, oh no, this would actually work better in 2 months, or with this many calls, or maybe it needs to be 6 months, who knows, then you can change for the next one and continue on with that. And then right now, what would you recommend? Do I start with free to get testimonials and get some practice in, or do I go straight into $250 for 4 calls? So my recommendation is, it would depend on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to a creator that is like consistently putting out content and you see that they have potential for growing larger, then I would do it for free. Like, get on a call with them. It doesn't have to be 4 calls, but just like over deliver value and show that you know what you're talking about, and like help them get results, because that is going to lead to much more referrals, word of mouth marketing, shout outs, all of that stuff that will lead to more money in the future. If you're talking to a consumer or just someone that's interacting with your audience, then I would go for the 250, and because they're much more, not necessarily readily available, but that's what they're looking for, right? Like they don't have in the back of their head like creators, where it's like, I have something I could offer this guy and I don't really care to pay for this, but I would take it if it was free. Then it's like, yeah, you go that route. So creator versus consumer and who you're actually helping would be the main deciding factor there, because the testimonial from the creator is just worth a ton. So do those make sense?
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it does. And I mean, I think this is pretty obvious, but the call, it's something separate from the whatever package you sell, right?
Could you repeat that? That it might be me breaking out.
Yeah, like the kickoff call is not considered inside the 4, 8, 10, whatever package. The kickoff call, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And that's like, the kickoff call is optional. Like, if you have a very clear, concise email of like, here's what we're going into, here's how you get at, like, if you have some kind of dashboard or curriculum or something else that is pretty simple to give them access to, and you can have like a link to it in there. And this is of course in the future, if you have a curriculum, other things like that. But like, only do the kickoff call if you need the kickoff call. Like if there is something technical, or like you need to get questions from them and you don't have a questionnaire yet, and other things like that. So the kickoff call is optional if you can make it extremely clear in the email what they need to do next in order to best get the value out of those 4 calls.
Okay. So let's not that I want to put you on the spot, but what would you recommend or what would you think would be a good kickoff call if the thing that I want to do is I want to help like younger guys specifically get over tough breakup, right? I was talking to Antha actually, and I don't know if I'm gonna gear it towards young entrepreneurs or young freelancers, young programmers, just because they need to be on point, mentally and emotionally to actually make money, as opposed to like a regular guy that has just like a 9 to 5 job. Maybe they don't really need to be 100%. Anyway, the main idea is to help them get over a tough breakup because I've helped a lot of my friends with that. I've gone through a lot of them. I already have sort of like a process and I'm working on the outline. But for example, for something like that, that it's not technical, how would you like? What would you do in a kickoff call?
I would, so in that case, it would either be like questions on the kickoff call or just a questionnaire, like a Google Forms you send them to get more questions out of them, or answers out of them. So how did it happen? What are you feeling right now? Like, what have you done to try and overcome like the emotional issues that you're going through right now? I don't know, are you going to the gym or, something that would give you more, like clarity on how you can actually start to help them immediately on those calls, right? And so if those questions can be answered well in a questionnaire, then I would start with that. If it would take a kickoff call and like long answers and like seeing the emotion on their face to actually like write it down yourself and start to like create that solution for them, then I would do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of questions that you mentioned that I had thought about as well. That makes a lot of sense.
Cool. Yeah,
Awesome.
So the way that I think about it best is like when I had my ghostwriting agency with like another guy on Twitter that we were doing. The way that I thought about it is like, okay, what would I need to actually write like this person, right? And so it's a lot of actually what's in this course, where it's like the questions were, what tone do you want to put off? Who do you want to emulate, right? Like, who are your mentors? What are your favorite books? What blogs do you read? Who is the most similar to you that we can swipe ideas from? What are like the links to your offers so we can plug those and other things like that. So it's pretty much, it comes better with time. And if you miss a question in the questionnaire or even on a kickoff call, you can always ask them just like in the DMs, like, oh, like you can think like, oh, that would actually make a good question for the questionnaire. I'm going to ask it now so I can start to help them. And then you have it in the questionnaire for next time, so that you can, so it just slowly becomes better and better.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot, Dan. Since you guys have a way larger audience and no more creators, if you hear about any creator that's going through a breakup, send it my way.
Nice.
Because one of the things that we're told is that creators don't vent. So I don't know how many creators are actually, going through a tough breakup and they're not actually mentioning it because they're not supposed to vent, or we're not supposed to vent, right? And talk about that. So
yeah,
awesome.
that actually gets me thinking too, is that you could start to, the reason this comes to mind is that I watched this guy, his name's Elisha Long on YouTube, and I was talking to him on Instagram, and I decided to join his Discord community just to like contribute however I could. And it's like it's a men's group, and it's a lot of like 18, 25-year-olds, and it's a bit too masculine for my taste. Like they're just going off in there. But like that makes me think like you could probably find places like that where like people that are going through breakups would hang out the most. And then that's like, yeah, I should initiate a DM with this person and start to talk to them, get on a call, and possibly get a testimonial from them. Because as you said, people may or may not do that on the timeline. So it's like, are there communities, are there groups, or even just like niches that you could find that would make it very easy for you to find those people? And like even Facebook groups in that case, but that's external prospecting until you like have the audience where it's like, and like people are attracted to your work because that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I had so the only thing that I see with is that I think that I would need like the creators, you know, like the main guy's permission to kind of do that, especially with Facebook groups, because then a lot of them will just kick you out if you're trying to, you know, like help the guys that they are trying to help, because you're like, I don't know, client, like how do you call client sniping or whatever. What I was thinking actually was I started looking for like I just typed breakup, you know, in Twitter, and then I saw that there's like this platitude, sort of like this platitude accounts that are for breakups. But I also see that there's some top results where people are posting about, you know, like their breakup under a consumer one or something. So I was thinking of DMing those people and trying to help them out, see how that could work. I am of a men's group, two of them actually that have been for a long time. And the whole thing is that I would rather try and help them before they join the community, because like you said, they're maybe too masculine. But I know, and I've seen a lot of those communities go way too toxic, you know, way too into red pill or whatever they're called. And I want to get them before that, because the main idea would be for them not to go that way, you know, for them not to get jaded, for them not to go as far as they actually go in some of those groups.
Yeah,
that's basically the, like part of the outcome that I would like, for them not to get jaded, or, you know, like all women are the same or whatever, because they're not. So anyway.
Right. Nice. No, I dig that. All right. So a question for Joey. With an offer, I get it's useful to quantify a result, but can be tough to do with certain services / results, like parts of what I'm doing. What's it been like for performance coaching? And since you first started, how's your offer evolved?
So I know Dan can answer the first part of your question way better than I can, and from a more general perspective. But for me, that was probably the hardest part of developing my offer. It took me a very long time, because with performance specifically, I'm sure there are other cases, but it felt like there wasn't really any way to quantify that. I mean, people suggested hours of the day, and that's really what I wound up doing for a while. But I always felt like I had to relate it back to money, because so many offers relate to money somehow. Like, you'll double your revenue or you'll whatever. But I would say that's not always entirely necessary. You just have to be able to speak to something that the person or the people that you're targeting want. It was really hard for me when I first started off. It didn't really have any tangible benefit. It was just, I'll help you optimize your performance, become more efficient, and something else. And then I got to, I'll make you more efficient and you'll save 2+ hours a day within 90 days. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. So like the common saying, and it's true, where it's like, if you want to make money, like, you should sell something that saves someone time or money, right? So in terms of quantification, it's not only money, but it's time. So time frame in this sense. That's why you see all the time in like the fitness space where it's like 30-day challenge to lose X amount of weight or something like that. It's not necessarily the amount of weight that is enticing. It's, I'm going to get this done in 30 days so I don't have to worry about it again, right? And I know that King David on Twitter does this with like porn coaching as well, where it's like 30-day quit porn challenge or something. That's like tied to his guarantee, where it's like you get X clear promise in Y days, right? Like Ship 30, where it's like start writing online in 30 days. So it's a short time frame that people can like quantify in their head, as opposed to, oh, you're going to make $10,000 next month. or you're going to make $10,000, right? I would argue that that is less quantifiable than like you are going to start a business in 30 days, or you are going to do XYZ in X amount of time that it takes that you believe is required to get that clear promise. So in your case, I know you're doing fitness. If you're targeting like a beginner audience per se, and they aren't even going to the gym, then it could be like, stay consistent in the gym for 30 days. That could be better, but I'm sure you get what I'm saying here, where the best way to quantify it is with a time frame, especially in the health and fitness industry.
Sure. So could that also be process based as opposed to just results based? So like if you've got the 30 days, could you do like the in under 5 hours a week or something like that instead?
Yes, 100%. That's also works really well. And that's like what a lot of the minimalist trainers are doing. So like Kinobody, it's like you're only in the gym for, or like he's been doing recently and he's done in the past, where it's like you only go to the gym 2 times a day for like to build muscle, something like that. Whether it's like science backed or not, that's what he promotes. So it's like as enticing as you can make it for a specific person, then that's what's best. So if it's like, 5 hours a week, or like 30 minutes 3 times a week and something like that, and being able to get it in their head where they can picture it being a part of their lifestyle is gold.
Okay. And just to follow on for Joey, so when you changed your offer over time, did you see an improvement in the people that came on board, or was that just along with growth?
How do you mean? Sorry.
That's cool. So did you see any improvements with the consultations that you did in terms of the volume because of the offer refinement, or was it purely because you were growing as an account and people were getting to know you a bit better?
That's a good question. I would say both factors contributed to an increase in growth or increase in calls. I would say, though, that when I did get on a prospect call, I was able to speak more confidently because I was more sure that I was offering something that the person wanted. And I was also able to ask better questions. See, it helped my targeting in my CTA, and it also helped the questions that I was asking in the DMs or in my on qualification form. So I was able to get better information out and also deliver a stronger guarantee as well, because that guarantee was directly related to the language I was using in my offer. So my guarantee has basically been, for the 90-day program, I'll save you 2 hours a day. And for most people, there's some sort of revenue increase on there as well, because I work with so many people and I know that people typically make $5,000 to $10,000 a month over time as they've worked with me. So then I've started guaranteeing that. And the great thing about those kinds of guarantees is you can say, or I'll work with you until we get there. That's always a good way to augment that guarantee. So I would really say both, but it really helped me on the calls to be able to speak to what it was I figured that they wanted.
Okay, sure. Thank you, guys.
No problem. All right. So we're closing in on the time. Does anyone have? Oh, we got Oscar left question. Where does this framework come from? I've gotten a ton of guys using this exact same script. How do we differentiate ourselves from the others that use this exact same script? How to sound less robotic? Are you meaning the DM script that's in there? Like in the actual?
I mean, it could be the DM, but no, because the DM, in the end, yes, I've seen them too, but with the DM, it's text, right? So there's not a lot of subcontext. I mean, more on the conversational sales call. I've gotten on a ton of sales calls over the years, and they all have that same script, and you can definitely tell when they know it by heart or when they're reading it off the page.
Yeah,
And I know what question will come afterwards. So
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah. Well, in my eyes, like it's the sales process. So like everyone uses it for a reason, because if they, I don't know, it works in my case, but that's why I stress so much in there that it's more so the sales process rather than like word for word script. It's more so like, here's an example of what you would be saying, but in a normal conversation, that's the exact same. That's the exact thing. You don't want it to sound robotic. It's more so, okay, at this point in time, I need to diagnose their problems. And so you ask a question that would lead to you getting the right answer out of them, rather than just be like, okay, so tell me more about what's going on here, right? Like, but that's the thing, is it takes creativity, and it's very situation based in order to do that well. So as with people, like starting off reading the script is better than not getting on a call at all, right? And then as you get better, and as you not necessarily start to know the script by heart, but start to understand like, okay, I need this information in order to better position my offer towards them, and so on and so forth. So at the start, that's the main thing.
Okay.
And
awesome.
yeah,
I do know that I need to get my rest.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly. The thing with making it more organic and natural is like it's almost impossible at the start, because you'll get on that first call and you don't know how they're going to react to your service, how they're going to react to what you say. And so you're going to be like on edge, you're going to be stressed, you're going to be nervous, and the words just aren't going to flow. So it's better to follow a script in that case, just to make sure you're getting all of the information you need on the call. But then as you get more comfortable with it, it kind of just becomes a conversation at that point, and like a guided conversation of what's going on. And it becomes a lot more natural at that point, and people will be able to tell that like you are more calm. But that's the thing, is you have to get through the reps. And if you are stressed and nervous, that does not mean by any means that they are going to say no only for that reason, right? It's going to just mean that it's going to be a bit more robotic, and you have to be okay with that, because it is putting in the reps. But that's not going to necessarily like mean the call's a bust as a whole. It really doesn't, because you will close a good amount of people with that, and it'll just become more and more as you become more confident in that.
One thing that I'll add that helps out a lot, I mentioned this before, but it's just simply taking some time to practice your script. So you can take a default script and customize it to fit your offer, and you can change it up a bit to fit your personality as well, or take out things you don't feel comfortable with, but then just practice it. Even taking 5 minutes a day, 2 or 3 times a day, really goes a long way. You just don't want to be trying to remember all of that on the spot, because then you're going to potentially come across as not being sure. What you won't be sure of is the script itself, but what the prospect may pick up on is you not being sure of your offer. And if you don't seem confident in what you're saying, the questions you're asking, the answers you're providing, the offer you're presenting, then they won't be either. Like this, the big thing about the discovery calls is getting the prospect to trust you. So just taking a few minutes a day to practice that script really goes a long way.
Okay. And through the process of doing the discovery calls, how would you I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you would ask for feedback, but through the process of the discovery calls, as it relates to your offer tiers, how would you get feedback to see if you change the tiers? Because, for example, right now I was thinking of, let's say that I do the 4 calls a month, and 3 months it's $1,500, right? And then I said, well, I'll do 2 calls a month for 3 months for $750. Or the very cheapest one, it's $500 for the 3 months for unlimited access to me via email, right? Or something instead of calls, or something like that. How do you know if the actual tiers that you're offering are working to your favor or against in that regard with those discovery calls?
Yeah. So the main thing there, what I did that worked, it's kind of like aside from, so the main way that like I have taught and that I have done and that other people say is like, just say the highest price, shut up. And then if they object, then you can start to work down and negotiate. I am not a good negotiator at all. Like even like at a flea market or something, I don't negotiate. It's just like I pay, like give me it, whatever your price, I don't care. Like I don't want to negotiate. And so on the calls, I'll say what I would usually do is say the first two. So it'd be like, I have this highest price offer that includes this, this, and this, or I have this a tiny bit lower offer that doesn't include this, this, and this from that higher tier. And then they'll weigh the options. And in that case, I've had like most of the people buy the higher tier one because usually the things that are taken out are pretty important. But then if they say no to either, then it's like, well, I can also take away X, Y, Z, and it's still very beneficial to you because it includes this, this, and this, which will help you in benefit way still. So you're still spinning it in a way that is the most helpful to them, and then leaving it in their court if they're okay with some aspects of the offer being taken out.
Awesome. That helps. I guess also it just needs to work and then see how they're responding as well.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. All right, my friends. Well, I think we will call it here. If you have any questions, of course, leave them in the Discord. I'm going